A black teenager in 1975 could earn $80 a month sweeping a corner shop or folding shirts in a neighbor's business, enough to buy school clothes, help with rent, or even save for their first car. Today, most cannot get hired at 18, even for free. The Fair Labor Standards Act, union apprenticeships, and a web of black-owned businesses once made early work almost a rite of passage. So how did black teens go from thriving at 14 to being locked out by 22% unemployment now? It all starts with the rules and the numbers that changed everything. Federal law set the boundaries for how young a teenager could start earning a paycheck. The Fair Labor Standards Act, first passed in 1938 and updated throughout the decades, drew a clear line. 14 was the minimum age for most non-farm jobs. At that age, a teen could work in places like retail stores, offices, or restaurants, but only if the work was considered non-hazardous. The law spelled out exactly what that meant. No jobs with dangerous machinery. No work around heavy chemicals. Nothing that would put a young person at risk. Instead, the roles open to 14 and 15-year-olds were the safer, lighter tasks: sweeping, stocking shelves, bagging groceries, or helping in an office. During the school year, the rules were strict. A 14-year-old could work no more than 3 hours on a school day and no more than 18 hours in a school week. The law kept the evenings short too. No shifts past 7 in the evening. Once summer arrived, the restrictions eased. Teens could work up to 8 hours a day and as much as 40 hours a week, with the evening cutoff pushed to 9 in the evening. These limits applied nationwide, whether a young person lived in a big city or a small town. The same rules held in Detroit, Chicago, or Baltimore, cities where black communities built strong networks of small businesses and local shops. The 1974 amendments to the Act made the definitions even tighter, especially around what counted as hazardous. But the core idea remained. 14 and 15-year-olds could work as long as the job was safe and the hours did not interfere with school. For many families, these rules were not just a technicality, they were the difference between a teenager being able to help out at the local store or having to wait until 16. In the 1970s, these legal boundaries shaped who could get hired, for how long, and in what kind of job. They set the stage for the economic realities that followed: how much a young worker could earn, what they could buy, and how their first paycheck fit into the life of their household. A 14-year-old working part-time in 1975 earned $2.10 for every hour on the clock. That number might sound small today, but the math added up quickly. 10 hours a week, just within the legal limit, meant about $40 every 2 weeks, or roughly $80 a month before taxes. For many black families in cities like Chicago, Detroit, and Baltimore, that was real money. Adjusted for inflation, $80 in 1975 is the same as about $450 today. That is not just pocket change. A teenager could buy new sneakers for $25, pick up a few pairs of jeans and shirts for school, and still have cash left to help with the rent or groceries. In some households, parents counted on that contribution to make ends meet. For others, it was a way to build up savings, maybe for a used car, which might go for $800 at a local lot. It was common for a young worker to hand over a portion of their pay, sometimes slipping bills into a family envelope marked for utilities or food. The Consumer Price Index tracked how the buying power of a dollar changed over time. In 1975, a gallon of milk cost about $1. A bus ride in most cities was 25 cents. Even after setting aside money for family needs, a teenager could treat themselves to a movie or a burger at the neighborhood diner. That first paycheck meant more than just spending money. It was a step toward responsibility, a lesson in budgeting, and a taste of independence. For many, the goal was not just to get by, it was to get ahead. Saving up for something big, like a down payment on a car or even college tuition, started with those early paychecks. The money was a tool, giving teenagers a sense of purpose and a role in the household economy. Each hour at the register or sweeping up after closing time was another brick in the foundation for the future. These numbers made the opportunity to work at 14 feel urgent and meaningful. The next question was where those jobs actually came from and who was willing to hire a young teen just starting out. Barbershops on a Saturday morning filled with the hum of clippers, the scent of aftershave, and the steady rhythm of conversation. In neighborhoods across Chicago, Detroit, and Baltimore, these shops were more than places for a trim. They were cornerstones of Black community life, and for many teenagers, the first stop on the road to earning a paycheck. 14-year-olds swept up hair, ran errands, and learned the art of customer service by watching the older barbers at work. A few blocks away, the local corner store might be opening for the day. The owner, often a neighbor who knew every family on the block, relied on young helpers to stock shelves, carry boxes, and ring up groceries. After school, kids in faded jeans and school jackets would show up for a few hours of work, paid in cash at the end of the week, sometimes with a soda or a bag of chips thrown in. Beauty salons and funeral homes also played their part. In the back room of a bustling salon, a teenager might wash towels, sweep floors, or help mix hair products, picking up tips from stylists and clients alike. Funeral homes, with their steady stream of business and deep roots in the community, sometimes hired teens to help set up chairs, polish caskets, or deliver flowers. That work required a sense of respect and discretion well beyond their years. Record shops, too, offered a different kind of education. In cities where soul and funk records sold by the crate, a young worker might unpack new releases, organize displays, or help customers find the latest hit single. These jobs demanded trust. The owner needed to know the teen's family or have a word from a respected neighbor. In many cases, a handshake was as good as any paperwork. The variety of Black-owned businesses in these neighborhoods was striking. On Chicago's South Side, the Chatham Strip along Cottage Grove Avenue boasted everything from pharmacies and ice cream parlors to banks and clothing stores. Baldwin Ice Cream, a staple for generations, sometimes hired local kids to scoop cones or tidy up after closing. Independence Bank, just down the block, stood as a symbol of Black economic power, while nearby funeral homes and barbershops quietly supported families through life's milestones. One standout example was Johnson Products, the company behind Afro Sheen and Ultra Sheen. Their factory at 87th and Lafayette produced hair care products that became household names across America. While most of the workforce were adults, the company's presence in the community meant that local teens sometimes found work through family connections, helping out at special events, distributing samples, or assisting with mailings. Johnson Products even sponsored Soul Train, further tying the business to the rhythms of daily life for Black youth in Chicago. These workplaces offered more than just a paycheck. They were training grounds in responsibility, punctuality, and community pride. The shopkeepers and owners who hired young teens were not just looking for cheap labor. They were investing in the next generation, passing down lessons about hard work and trust. For a 14-year-old, landing a job at the corner store or barbershop meant stepping into a world of adults, learning by doing, and earning the respect of neighbors. It was the first tier of a pipeline that started on familiar streets and, for some, pointed toward bigger opportunities still to come. High school shop classes in the 1970s did more than teach woodworking or auto repair. They acted as gateways to steady jobs and union apprenticeships. In cities like Chicago and Detroit, Vocational classrooms buzzed with the sound of saws, lathes, and eager teenagers learning hands-on skills. Guidance counselors and shop teachers kept stacks of pamphlets from local unions, the electrical workers, the carpenters, the plumbers. At the end of the school year, a handful of students might be invited to tour a union hall or fill out an application for a pre-apprenticeship program. For many black teens, this was the first step toward a paycheck that could change a family's fortunes. Union trainers remember those days with a mix of pride and nostalgia. One retired instructor from a local electrical union recalls walking the halls of Dunbar Vocational High School, scouting for students who showed promise. The best candidates were not always the straight-A kids. They were the ones who could show up on time, follow directions, and work hard even when nobody was watching. A handshake and a word from a trusted teacher could mean a shot at a coveted apprenticeship slot. The union's Joint Apprenticeship and Training Committee, JATC, set the standards, but community recommendations often tipped the scales. By the mid-1970s, unions faced pressure from federal oversight to open more spots to minorities, and the pipeline from school to union hall became a lifeline for black families hoping to break into higher wage trades. But not every opportunity came through classrooms or official programs. In black neighborhoods, informal networks filled the gaps left by formal hiring systems. Churches played a central role. On Sunday mornings, pastors stood at the pulpit and announced job openings, apprenticeship fairs, or summer training programs. A teenager's best reference was not always a resume. It might be a neighbor, a deacon, or a family friend willing to vouch for their character. Block clubs and community associations kept lists of reliable young people and passed along names whenever a business owner needed help. Sometimes a handwritten note from a church leader or a quick phone call from a respected elder was all it took to land an interview. These social connections carried weight because trust mattered. In a time before online applications and background checks, employers relied on personal recommendations. A pastor or union trainer could open doors that would otherwise stay shut. For black teenagers, especially those from families with limited resources, these networks made the difference between finding a job at 14 and waiting years for a chance to earn their own money. Records from the era are sparse, but oral histories and union archives hint at the reach of these pathways. High school shop classes funneled students toward apprenticeships, while churches and block clubs acted as matchmakers between teens and employers. Even when official union programs set the minimum age at 16 or 17, younger teens often found work through family ties or community referrals, starting out as helpers and working their way up. And the system was not perfect. There were barriers and setbacks, but for many, it offered a structured way to move from classroom lessons to real-world paychecks. The combination of formal training and informal endorsements created a web of opportunity that stretched across neighborhoods and generations. It was a system built on skill, reputation, and community investment. As the 1970s rolled on, these pipelines would face new challenges. But in those years, they offered black teenagers a clear path from adolescence to adulthood, one job and one recommendation at a time. In the early 1980s, the ground shifted beneath entire communities almost overnight. The closure of Sparrows Point Steel Mill in Baltimore in 1982 sent shockwaves well beyond its gates. For nearly a century, Sparrows Point had been a giant, employing more than 30,000 workers at its peak, supporting not only families but also the businesses that lined the surrounding neighborhoods. When the plant shut down, it was not just the steel workers who lost their livelihoods. The ripple spread to corner stores, barber shops, and small shops that depended on steady paychecks coming in every Friday. Teenagers, once able to count on after-school jobs, stocking shelves, or sweeping up, found those doors closing. School boards in the area recorded a sudden drop in enrollment as families packed up and left in search of work. Local newspapers reported that youth employment in the region fell sharply, with some districts seeing dropout rates spike by 20% in the years that followed. Manufacturing jobs, which had once offered a reliable first rung on the ladder for young people, began to vanish across the country. Between 1970 and 1990, black neighborhoods in cities like Baltimore, Detroit, and Chicago saw manufacturing employment drop by as much as 60%. The sharp decline meant that the familiar pathways into work, factory floors, union apprenticeships, and the small businesses that thrived off industrial paychecks began to crumble. For black teenagers, the sudden loss of these jobs was not just about money. It was the loss of a rite of passage, a sense of belonging, and a crucial link between school, work, and adulthood. Black teenagers looking for work today face a reality that is hard to ignore. The unemployment rate for black teens stands at 22%, double that of their white peers who sit at 11%. That gap is not just a number. It is the difference between earning a paycheck and sitting at home, application after application, with no response. Job postings for fast food, retail, or even grocery stores now routinely list 1 to 2 years of experience required, even for entry-level roles. For a 17-year-old who has never had a job, that line alone can shut the door before they even step through it. Online applications have replaced the neighborhood handshake. Instead of a local shop owner giving a chance to a kid from the block, algorithms sort resumes and filter out anyone who cannot check the right boxes. Even volunteer work or babysitting rarely counts. The result? Many teens give up after weeks of rejections, or they turn to unpaid internships, positions that promise experience but offer no paycheck. For families already stretched thin, working for free is not an option. The only teens who can afford to do it are those whose parents can cover the bills. Opportunities that once taught responsibility and independence now feel out of reach. The loss is not just economic, it is cultural, a missing rite of passage that once helped teenagers step into adulthood and contribute to the life of their families and neighborhoods. Today, black teens face twice the unemployment rate of their white peers, and the promise of that first paycheck feels further away than ever. As entry-level jobs vanish behind unpaid internships and experience requirements, the path to adulthood shifts. Opportunity isn't just about work, it is about who gets the chance to build a future. The question now is who opens the next door? Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts below.